Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters. Well, the season kicked off on Friday, didn't it? Big time. It was maybe not quite the relaxing opening many were looking for, but magic in front of the Kop will always be welcome. There's a million and one things to talk about from that game. There's things going on and off the field. We'll be talking transfers. And we'll even be previewing the Alexander Isak derby coming up a week today as well. I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. And I mean, David, let's just get right into this straight away. Opening games are not really supposed to be that dramatic, are they?
Yeah, no, it's kind of when you go 2-0 up, you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a nice little kind of straightforward evening and a nice way to kick off the season, and maybe kind of a few calmer games this season because they've got that extra quality in, but obviously didn't prove to be the case and ended up being crazy. And I have to say, you say about it being unusual for an opening day game. I just thought the atmosphere was absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. Again, we usually get this discourse at the start of the season about, why is the Anfield atmosphere not what it usually is? Because it does start slow, because at the end of the day, the kind of games, they don't mean as much at the start. You don't know what those 3 points against Bournemouth are going to be worth in the end. But because of everything that happened in the game, and I think there's an element as well of kind of the crowd, they really want to defend this title. It's not happened for a long time, and the chance to go clear as well in terms of titles won in English clubs. Everyone's in from like day one straight away, and it seems to kind of, and it also helps obviously Friday evening. People have had a few pints or whatever, end of the working week. But the atmosphere was just absolutely incredible. And I think, it was a 3 points and a win that meant a lot and was taken from a really, really good game. And yeah, just a lot to enjoy about it, really.
Yeah, there was so much. And you were right. It was just different to what I think many expected. But the emotions in the ground before kickoff, there was various songs, obviously Diogo Jota's name being sung, the start, 20 minutes, Chiesa. There was just emotions being a key theme throughout the game, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that was another big part of it, really, the Jota thing, the emotions of that. Obviously, the first league game since that has happened, and it's a reminder to kind of fans and staff and players, okay, it's starting now, and he's not here, and that is not right. That's not how it should have been. It's not what the plan was. He was going to be part of the squad this season. So, it feels. It felt huge, and You'll Never Walk Alone was particularly poignant. We saw the mosaic, the huddle between the players, the minute silence, just everything about it kind of ramped the emotions of the evening up, really. And you have to say it probably makes things difficult for the players as well. I think this is a really underrated element. It can't be, as much as we want to pay tribute, it can't be helpful to the players, I have to say. To be reminded of this constantly, even though it's absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm not saying not to do it, absolutely not. Please don't get me wrong on that. But even the 20th minute of a game, it's a reminder of this thing happened this summer, by the way, and you could see from Salah at the end. They've got a lot of grief there pent up, and to kind of constantly be reminded of that, it must be really tricky for them to kind of focus on the jobs. And that's the thing about this, is that they lost a friend who they knew through football. So every time they play and every time the songs get sung and there's any mention and any time a goal gets scored, it feels like they're paying tribute to Diogo. It's just really difficult mentally. And the fact that they dealt with that in a really tricky game is impressive. But I really do think they need to be cut some slack this season around, if they're not perfect, because I just think the mental challenge that they're going through, on top of how difficult it is to win games in this league, that's going to be a factor for me. And if they start a little slowly and they're not perfect in this opening period, then so be it, because what they've been through, it's almost being downplayed at times.
Yeah, you saw Virgil talking about it after the game. Mo at final whistle, even Arne Slot was saying it, wasn't he, from the emotions in his press conference straight after. So it is going to sort of understandably be there, and you have got to cut them some slack. Absolutely right. And we'll get into it, people. We'll talk about players. We'll talk about individual performances. And you're going to hate me for doing this, but we've got to talk about it, because we said we make it a prerogative almost not to bring refs into it this year. But that VAR call, David, I mean, it's a clear handball swipe. I watched it. We were in the ground and we saw it from the top of the Kop. And then you saw the replays at half-time, etc. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, pretty unbelievable, really. I mean, again, you always kind of sympathise with the ref and say, quite easy for him not to see it. If he's not got the right angle or someone crosses his path at that time, whatever, that can happen. But for VAR not to intervene seems a really strange one, because it is a clear and obvious error. It's because we're talking about a potential red card opportunity for Dogso, aren't we? So, those are the moments where you want your VAR to get involved. It's not, that's not a yellow card. It's a straight red, isn't it, for stopping Ekitike going through on goal? So, quite difficult to understand why that wasn't given, really. And I don't really kind of take the official explanation of that. I wonder genuinely whether they just checked the first moment where the ball bounces up off his knee onto his arm, which absolutely shouldn't be a red card. It was a totally accidental handball. There's not much he can do about that situation. But the one where he reaches for it and pushes it with his fingertips, and there's a clear push on the ball that stops Ekitike getting it. He knows what he's doing there, Senesi, as well. He's panicking, and he just goes to reach out and actually does touch it. Really surprised he didn't give that one. I mean, thankfully, didn't have any impact in the end, but what a great start for the referee in this season.
Yeah, just maybe if we look at it on a positive, it didn't rob us of all the excitement, passion, everything that followed at the same time. And you mentioned that man. I mean, Hugo Ekitike, I loved his interview afterwards where he talked about, I could have done better. He speaks such good English. But in this one, composed finish, an assist for Gakpo as well. Man of the match officially, all action this start.
Yeah, I thought man of the match was a little bit harsh on Semenyo. I thought had a really, really good game, to be honest. Ekitike was right up there, to be fair. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Great work rate. I keep talking about his physicality because it's one of the things you just always worry about the Bundesliga coming into this league. Are they going to be strong enough? Are they going to be quick enough? Because that's the thing that sets the Premier League apart, is it's just physically so, it's the highest level of the sport in those terms. So, but he's just so good in that aspect, which I loved. And his goal is great because it's just determination and then the pure composure in the moment that he does get the break of the ball he just settles himself, and it's like just passes it in, sends the keeper the wrong way. It's so nice to see, and the determination initially is brilliant, and then gets an assist as well, which is I don't know, fairly generous assist because it's only from, he passes the ball 2 yards. But I mean, it's just good to see. It's just hold up play in the box. It's playing others in. It's being aware of what the right move is in that moment. And I guess he kind of puts a bit of info on it because he tells Gakpo, just keep going that way. You take it and keep running that way. So, yeah, a really, really good debut. And he just looks a top signing, doesn't he? And Liverpool look like they've found another gem, really. So yeah, hugely encouraged by his performance, and I just think Liverpool, they're not as good a side when he's not on the pitch at the moment. So I think that proves that he's settled in quite nicely, and he's a very important part of what they're doing.
I was going to ask you that because you're right. Obviously, for the games where he's come off, things have tended to go to pieces a little bit, and I know it's not just that, but naturally, with everything that's suspected, being speculated on at the moment, people will then ask, if as expected certain things happen, does Hugo Ekitike start? But he isn't half making a case right now.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, he just can't be, he can't be doing much more in terms of playing well. But you've just got to think, that there really are like so many games in a season and so many opportunities to play. Even if you have another option up there, I don't think he's going to spend the season sitting on the bench. There's just no chance. There's just too many minutes. You've got to manage other players' fitness as well, and there's that potential, isn't there, for playing him off the left-hand side. I think when you look at his qualities and how he plays, maybe moving into a 2 at times. And I mean, we've kind of seen that as well, because when Slot's done that kind of 2 false nines thing, you could just do that with 2 out-and-out 9s, couldn't you? We were capable of dropping in and linking the play. There's nothing to say that's not something you can do. So and Liverpool just need that depth. They really do. There's just enough games for everyone. They had so many centre-forward options last season. They all got enough games. And if they have 2 this season, I'm sure there'll be enough games as well. And like I say, Ekitike couldn't be doing more to kind of keep himself in the team anyway.
Yeah, Really impressive start to the Premier League. But Mr. Opening Day just reminded everyone at the end, didn't he? 10 opening day goals to go, well, more than one clear at the top. Another, well, extended his own Premier League record. But almost the thing with Mo is when it was 2-2, we were all looking and going, oh, God, we're going to need someone individual. But he puts the cross in, doesn't he, that causes the chaos for the third goal, which is a brilliant ball. And even the finish on his right foot from the opposite side of the area we expected to, Mo Salah just came to life when needed as normal.
Yeah, it's a good point actually around his involvement in the goal. It's not necessarily an assist, but it causes the panic that ends up in Bournemouth, hashed clearance, and then kind of lands nicely to Chiesa. And it is a brilliant ball. I think it's Jones maybe trying to get on the end of it. Yeah. So nearly gets him in there. And just that moment of kind of quality you need in those really, really clutch moments. He just always provides it, doesn't he? And then, manages to get his goal. Didn't think he was going to squeeze it in at all. I don't think Bournemouth thought he was going to take a shot on his right. So it's a really, really nice finish. And I mean, he's just, honestly, what more can you say about this guy now? It's ridiculous. Fourth on the Premier League all-time list now. He just is, for a fact, one of the greatest Premier League players of all time. He's one of the greatest players of all time, full stop for me. He's just unbelievable. And another season of watching him. I can't wait, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is fair to acknowledge as well, you saw the scenes when he was in front of the cop at the end, for the chanting. I think it maybe help people realise just how much, especially for Mo. And he even snapped during the game at a little sort of thing in the box, which is the opposite of what he does normally. He normally just laughs it off or moves away. I think people start to realise with this just how big an impact this has had on Mo Salah.
Yeah, without question. I mean, like you say, that moment where he kind of kicks off in the box, I've never seen him do that before. He is so calm usually. It's just impossible to wind up, really. It's the angle, he doesn't even moan about bad decisions from referees. He just kind of, you might see a flail of the arm once in a while, but not really. And never ever gets wound up by opposition players. So that he's obviously in a bit of a heightened emotional state, which as you rightly would be. And as I say, hearing the song and this being the first game, Slot talks about looking to the bench, doesn't he? And Diogo not being there, and he's absolutely right. Jota would have been on that pitch in that moment with Liverpool trying to win the game, and he wasn't. And so it just shows you with Salah just the emotion that was there, and it was there in the celebration. It was there at the end of the game as well when he was clapping along with the fans. It's obviously hit him really hard. And I mean, I think fantastic, by the way, that he showed that vulnerability. I think that's really important. Just makes you kind of respect him even more, to be honest. And I just hope it will get easier for him over time, which is just how it tends to work with grief, isn't it? But he's clearly dealing with it at the moment. But no shortage of ability on the football pitch, despite everything he's going through.
Yeah, definitely. And unbelievable. And we didn't expect any different than an opening day goal standard for Mo Salah. The debut of a few more, because it was brilliant from Ekitike. Frimpong and Kirkes, I'll kind of put the fullbacks together in this a little bit. Not bad, not great. Mixed, is that okay to file it under?
Yeah, I mean, I think Frimpong's kind of surprised me a little bit in some of these games. I don't think he's been, to all the talk about kind of, he's a bit of a defense. I kind of learn every summer and forget it by the next one that you shouldn't listen to anyone talking about players who there's people on Twitter and they've got these opinions on players in other leagues and they talk like they watch every single game. And so, you hear about Frimpong being basically a defensive liability and all these things. And then he comes in and you're like, well, he's actually not, is he, at all, really? I mean, he's probably not perfect, but he's quick enough to get himself out of danger. He puts unbelievable effort into his defending, which I think is a step up from the guy who preceded him. And he wins duels, to a decent degree so far. So I think he's doing, absolutely fine. So, I didn't mind his performance at all. In fact, I just had a quick look there, 3 out of 4 ground duels won. If he keeps that up, winning 3/4 of his ground duels, I'm absolutely happy with that in terms of defensive output. And he is a real threat going forward as well. So, quite liked his performance. I thought the guy on the other side, maybe not so much, to be honest. I thought he's He's just struggled a bit, hasn't he? Which is fine, by the way. We shouldn't go too hard on him. And he's 21 years old. He's come to Liverpool, massive spotlight on him, and he's going to have weaknesses in his game at that point, and weaknesses he didn't see highlighted so much at Bournemouth, because who out of us is watching Bournemouth every week? Maybe the same people on Twitter who claim that that Frimpong can't defend it all. So it can't. There are going to be weaknesses there, and you're going to kind of see those. And I thought we saw a few of those in his performance. It's just a little rash at times, isn't he? Just diving in, and that yellow card kind of really summed him up in terms of just a second late and just a bit desperate in his defending. But I think he's just he's trying really too hard to impress, and he will settle. The qualities there. Liverpool don't tend to sign bad players, so I've not got any worries about him whatsoever in the long term. I think the manager will just have a little word with him. But I think it was the right decision to bring him off when he came off, because on a yellow card, and his head looked a bit chocker, didn't it? And you just got to protect him in those situations. And yeah, I think there's a case there to be made for slowly easing him in. But I do not doubt for a second he's going to be very good for Liverpool.
Yeah, and I suppose because we did the analysis with Bart, so about the dashboard and the various things that we run on Anfield Index. And it was interesting with Frimpong, as you said, won 75% of his ground duels and actually stopped 100% of his threat down that side, whether that was a foul on occasions. No one's going past him. That's the key thing. Whereas Kerkez, 33% of his aerial duels, and I think it's important in that regard. Bournemouth would have known aerially isn't where Kerkez is strongest, and they tried that diagonal ball to Semenyo so often because they know he's going to. Of course, Semenyo is a handful for even the best fullback in the world at any time. But I suppose the bit I wanted to ask about Kerkez, the bits we've seen at Bournemouth, as many will have, roadrunner, bombs on, up and down all day for Bournemouth, crosses into the box or balls forward. For us, and we've seen it all pre-season, the Community Shield as well, and Friday, tucked right in, inverted, not really going anywhere quite often as well. I know, obviously, people will suggest about having both going, but sometimes you thought it might be intermittent. Has it surprised you the way he's set up Kerkez so far?
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to be like a long-term thing. I just kind of think, they're kind of bedding in and getting used to how they do things. And I think it's got to be a case that one goes and the other sits, and that's, kind of really traditional fullback play, isn't it? And I think they're just trying to get used to that and working that out and exactly how that works. And it's as the comment says there, it's a positioning thing really, and timing on the runs forward and those kind of things, because you are going to get caught out of position as a fullback that bombs forward, but you don't want that to be the case when the fullback's maybe on the other side. So just got to be careful about it. And also, if the midfield was functioning a little bit better, and had that defensive shield, it would probably cover for the fullbacks, which is the idea anyway. So I just do not want to be too harsh on him. He's 21 years old, and he's a quality player whenever I've seen him in a Bournemouth shirt. And he's just learning. He looks a bit nervous and like I say, trying a little bit too hard, but the quality is absolutely there. So let's not absolutely hammer him after his first couple of games. I'm sure he'll work it out, and he'll be an important player by the end of the season.
I think as both fullbacks would say quite clearly, hold on, it was 2-0 when we left the pitch. We were keeping a clean sheet, and that was the big thing. And I mean, we'll talk about the sub shortly, but I suppose the things people will look at, I mean, I think Konate's still running backwards. He's probably at Goodison Park about now, but just the shape, the system, and maybe it's because there is so many changes. It's fair to say it wasn't quite there at times, was it?
No, exactly. And I think there are kind of teething problems going on that we saw in pre-season and in the Community Shield, that the things that they're just trying to work out. I mean, I've been surprised by how good they've been going forward, by the way, despite the fact there's been so much turnover. And I thought they showed that again. Obviously, scoring 4 goals pretty much underlines it. But also, at the back, there are a few issues. And I think, there's a lot of mitigating circumstances in there as well, in terms of what's going on in midfield, 2 new fullbacks, all these aspects really can add up to you being quite easy to counter-attack. But it wasn't a problem for Liverpool last season, and I really don't think it's going to be a problem for them this time. I just think there are going to be, it might take them a little moment to kind of hit the stride, really. And the key is, in the meantime, just pick up results as well as you can, really. And then things will work themselves out. Slot's not daft at all, is he? And I'm not overly concerned yet that they're not going to be able to sort it out.
Yeah, you do think Arne Slot will, of course, be working on it. He's got a full week preparation there as well. And I mean, it is right to talk about the subs. And I think it's almost to address it in two blocks, because Kirkes, Frimpong go off, don't they? And Endo comes on, and it doesn't quite work with Robbo there. I mean, those first set of subs, they were murdering Endo down that right-hand side, weren't they? Endo as a right-back, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, but do you know what? With the subs, I kind of feel for Arne Slot for the whole game, really, when you look at them, because there's a reason kind of that they didn't work. I mean, Robertson comes in for Kirkes, doesn't he? And you can't not justify that sub. It was absolutely the right thing to do to change the left back, because Kirkes was struggling. He was on a yellow card. You have to make that change there. And then Robertson comes on, and he's not phenomenal, is he? So that caused you an issue. Endo coming on at right back again. Joe Gomez isn't quite fit. He's only just done 3 training sessions before the game, or 2. And he comes into the side, so you can't really throw him in. So he has to try Endo maybe at right back, because Connor Bradley's injured. Obviously it doesn't work. And then immediately he's like, I've got to, 10 minutes later, I've got to get Gomez on to kind of sort this out. And then, bringing Ekitike off is something you probably feel that you have to do because of his fitness and where he's up to, getting used to the Premier League intensity. Same with Wirtz, who ran and ran and ran. So there was kind of mitigating circumstances really around every single substitution that he made. So I don't think he's making subs purely to win games. I think he's making subs with, I've got to manage his fitness, or Jeremy Frimpong's felt his hamstring, so I've got to bring him off. That kind of thing. It's I just felt for him a little bit, really, with his hand being forced, and so I don't want to judge the subs too harshly, really.
And to be fair, with his subs, he brings Joe Gomez on for what probably seems like the maximum minutes he can. He goes right back and makes a huge difference, to be fair, in that regard. Curtis Jones has an impact, and absolutely, he brings on Chiesa, doesn't he? So there is kind of a turnaround there. You've got to give him credit for that at the same time as well.
Well, that's it. Exactly. He brings on the guy who wins the game. So that's a pretty smart sub for me. And and a kind of a bit of a surprise sub, because, who kind of expects him to turn to Chiesa at that moment? I was quite surprised that he was the one who was coming on. So, and he has the crucial moment. So, that's another Arne Slot sub that has won a game for Liverpool that they weren't going to win. So, yeah, for all the criticism he got for all the other subs, which were, as I say, his hand was forced. He pulled one out of the bag massively with that one, and it worked out. So, for me, he's still in credit with the substitutions.
And it was great to see Joe Gomez back on the pitch. We know Ryan Gravenberch will be back for Newcastle. And if you were mentioning it in the chat panel, there was just, and you were at the press conference, there was no mention of Connor Bradley. I thought there might be something in his embargo, but it didn't come out. And even afterwards, all he said is Connor Bradley was injured. And I suppose you go back a few weeks and think, well, he said Gomez and Bradley were close or minor, as he mentioned, but Connor Bradley's just kind of dropped out the equation a little bit. Do we know anything about that at all?
Yeah, not sure, unfortunately. It didn't seem, when he kind of initially got injured, it was kind of, the talk was that he wasn't a million miles away. So, maybe we'll see him this week. I hope so. It was just, he did kind of get asked in the embargo section, but not as a direct question. It was kind of, is he going to be involved against Bournemouth? And he just outright said kind of no. So he wasn't, I don't think he was close for that game at all. But, there's a full week, isn't there, into the Newcastle game? Maybe that gives him enough time. No one made it sound like a really serious one. So, yeah, we just wait and see on that. But it would be good to get him back, because you need that option, don't you? And he gives you something different to Frimpong. And, we have to see with Frimpong where he's up to with that injury. Hopefully that's nothing serious. So you could do without them adding up on that right-hand side. So we'll have to see where they're up to.